All right, so you did it. You launch your first AWS server, your app is online, awesome. But now comes the real question, right? The one that separates just, getting something online from building a real solid architecture. Where is all that data gonna live? I mean, it's the fundamental question. Look, anyone can spin up a server, but what about the user profiles, the logs, all those photos people are uploading? This isn't just about picking a folder to save stuff in. This is about your entire data strategy. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to shift our mindset from just using services to actually architecting solutions. It's the difference between, say, grabbing a random tool from the toolbox and knowing precisely why you need that specific one for the job. Okay, first up, let's open up that cloud storage toolkit. The big secret here is to stop thinking about these AWS services as super complex technologies. Instead, think of them as specialized tools. I mean, you wouldn't use a hammer on a screw, right? Well, that same exact logic applies to your data. So here's the quick and dirty breakdown. You've got S3, which is kind of like a massive, practically infinite warehouse for all your standalone files. Then there's EBS. Think of that as the dedicated high-speed hard drive that's literally bolted right onto your server. And EFS, well, that's like a shared network drive in an office where multiple servers can all get to the same files at once. See? 3 totally distinct tools for 3 very different jobs.
All right, let's kick things off with S3. The concept here is really simple. You take your individual files, which we call objects, and you put them into these containers called buckets. This is your absolute go-to for anything that doesn't need to live on a server. We're talking user photos, videos, website backups, you name it. It's built to be unbelievably huge and accessible from pretty much anywhere.
Okay, look at this number. This is S3's famous 11 nines of durability. And what in the world does that actually mean? Well, to put it in perspective, it means that if you stored, say, 10,000 files in S3, you could expect to lose just one of them, on average, every 10 million years. Yeah, your data is ridiculously, incredibly safe here. So think about what you just did in that lab. By just clicking a button to enable versioning, you essentially gave your storage a time machine. Seriously. This isn't just some neat little feature, it's an absolute lifesaver that protects you from accidentally deleting or overwriting something important. It's basically like having Git, but for all your files. Okay, time for our next tool, EBS. So if S3 is that giant warehouse down the street, EBS is the super high-performance hard drive that's bolted directly to your server. This is what gives you that fast, low-latency storage you absolutely need to run your operating system or a really demanding application. There are a couple of really key things to get here. First, it's all about that one-to-one relationship. One EBS volume is locked to one EC2 instance. That's it. Second, it's persistent. So even if you shut down your instance, the data's still there. Your hard drive is just sitting there, totally safe, ready to go the next time you power back on. Okay, so we figured out where to put our files. But what about, structured data? Stuff like user information or product catalogs in a database. Well, let's open the next drawer in our toolkit, databases. And the big choice you're going to have to make here usually comes down to a trade-off between rigid structure versus massive flexible speed. And this is really the fundamental choice. On one side, you've got your relational databases, like RDS. The easiest way to think about this is like a spreadsheet on steroids, right? It's highly structured with tables, rows, and columns. Then, on the other side, you've got NoSQL databases, like DynamoDB. These guys are all about flexibility and just insane speed, built for simple, lightning-fast lookups, whether you have 10 users or 10 million. So, let's zoom in a bit on RDS, the Relational Database Service. Look, its main job is just to make your life easier, period. Instead of you having to manually install and patch and backup a database like MySQL or PostgreSQL, AWS handles all that boring, tedious, heavy lifting for you. It lets you just focus on your app's data, which is what you wanted to do in the first place. And connecting your app to RDS, that is a core real-world skill. It's not always just plug and play. You've got to think about security, you've got to think about networking. That moment, and we've all been there, when the connection fails and you finally realize, oh, I need to open up the port in the security group. That is quintessential cloud engineering right there. All right, now let's flip to the other side of the coin, DynamoDB. This is Amazon's flagship NoSQL database, and it is built for one thing and one thing only, pure, unadulterated speed at scale.
We are talking single-digit millisecond response times, whether you have 10 users or 10 million. And because its schema is flexible, you can change up your data structure on the fly. It's perfect for apps that need to evolve really, really quickly.
So, okay, we have our tools, right? S3, EBS, RDS, and DynamoDB. Now comes the most important part of all. Actually thinking like an architect. It's time to pull all this knowledge together and figure out how to make the right call for your project.
This is a classic question, one you'll hear all the time. And the answer really comes down to the access pattern. You use S3 for durable, long-term storage of standalone things, like images, backups, static website files. You use EBS when you need a high-performance, low-latency file system directly attached to a single server for its operating system and its applications. It's simple. One is a warehouse, the other is the server's own hard drive. So why would you pay for a managed service like RDS when you could just install MySQL yourself on an EC2 instance? Well, because it saves your single most valuable resource, your time. Just imagine getting a critical security alert at 3 a.m. If you're using RDS, AWS is handling the patching, the backups, the failover. You get to sleep. And you get to spend your days building cool new features, not being a reluctant, stressed-out database administrator.
All right, let's boil all this down to the key architect's takeaways. Number 1, choose your storage based on the access pattern, object, block, or file. Number 2, choose your database based on your data structure and how big it needs to scale. 3, and this is a big one, remember that great architecture is all about understanding and making smart trade-offs. And finally, please practice good cost discipline. Delete resources you're not using. Nothing says pro like keeping your bill low.
And I'll just leave you with this final thought. You launch your app, you pick a database you're comfortable with. But what if tomorrow it goes viral? Suddenly, you have millions of users hitting your app all at once. Are the architectural choices you made today going to hold up under that kind of pressure? That is the question every single cloud architect has to be ready to answer.